Today we are behind the wheel of a 1955 F100, and this is kind of a cool ride because this is the first time that we are getting behind the wheel of any Roadster Shop build that is on a RideLine fully independent chassis. So, what is a RideLine independent chassis? Well, it's loosely based off of our fast track suspension, so it is our top of the line. And the chassis is ultimately geared for ride quality and ride quality only. That was the focus. It still retains some great performance. So the car stays level around turns. It still has a general sporty feel, but it kind of captures just a little bit of that old Cadillac feel while keeping it under control, if that makes sense. You can maybe see a little bit of it as I drive, as this thing just kind of glides and floats down the road. That's the best way that I can describe the way that these RideLine chassis work. They soak up everything in the road. So if you're cruising down the street at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and there's a big bump, a pothole, some imperfection in the road, this thing will just soak it up. This particular one has the independent rear option. So with that independent rear, we use it up in the front as well, a longer stroke shot. So it's a 5.2 inch stroke shot. So you get a lot more wheel travel and you get a lot more spring length. So what that lets you do is put a longer, lighter spring. You can soften the spring rate, you can soften the ride quality, and you can really make this thing kind of float down the road. It's got spline sway bar out back, and it's got a DOM sway bar up front. So you still control the roll rate in it, you've got a lot of good roll resistance in it, and the truck still remains, very sporty. As you see, you can pitch this thing side to side, stays nice and flat, but at the same time it's soaking up all sorts of major imperfections in the road. The differential in the back, we use a 6th gen Camaro diff, so it's a actual OE GM component. Works out phenomenally well. Heavy duty drive axles in it, done by the Drive Shaft Shop, so big horsepower stuff, much like a lot of our fast track components. Based on the C7 knuckle, front and rear. Geometry, it kind of derives from the fast track. It's just growing on the track with, growing on the wheel travel, softened on the bushings, softened on the ride quality. Love this package for any of your pickup trucks, Tri-5 Chevys, a lot of your 50s kind of cruiser cars. If you got something that your intention is just road touring and cruising, I'd absolutely look at that as an option. Let's talk a little bit about the truck. People out there watching this video, you're probably looking at me in this truck cab thinking, dude, that guy looks tiny in there. That's not the case. I'm a pretty big dude, but the focus of this truck was to accomplish just that. These trucks are usually super compact. The ergonomics, the seating position is absolutely horrible. So for a guy who's 6 foot, 6'5", however tall you are, north of 5'5", it's tough to sit in one of these for any length of time and be comfortable. So what we did is start with a scan of this particular truck, use a 6-foot driver, model it up in SolidWorks, and position that driver in such a way that he's comfortable in the truck. Kind of an ergonomic disaster. So what we did is designed an entire firewall and tow board that takes everything on the front of this truck and moves it forward 4 inches. Accomplishes a lot. You'd be shocked at what that 4 inches gets you. For me, honestly, I struggle to even reach the pedals on this. My legs are completely straight in this truck, and drove this thing a tremendous amount of miles out to Columbus, Ohio, and unbelievably comfortable. You get in this thing and it doesn't do anything weird. It just glides down the highway. No hands on the wheel, one hand on the wheel, whatever you want to do. We're shooting down a road at 45 miles an hour right now, and this thing just goes this truck originally came into our shop, it was what we would call like a survivor build. It came in, older restoration, that it had a lot of upgrades on it. So it had an aftermarket front suspension, an aftermarket 4-link in the back, had some modifications to the factory frame, had a booster assembly added, pretty much everything that you can possibly do to upgrade a suspension short of putting a chassis under it. And in the long run, it got a chassis put underneath it. So you're really better off just saving the money and doing it right the first time. It's tough when you start trying to cut corners and expect to get something that's truly enjoyable and truly drivable. And the chassis itself, for the most part, is really our stock F100, 53 to 57 Ford F100. Independent rear, RideLine. Now, the thing that we did just a little bit different on this one is that we dragged the front wheelbase forward about 4 inches. And anybody that knows these trucks knows that they look like you drove them into a parking curb going too fast. The overhang from the front axle center line forward just looks really, really unusual. And it's not exactly a new trick. I mean, we've done that to quite a few trucks, but it does help in other aspects. Not just the proportions and not just the styling of the truck. Carrying that crossmember assembly forward lets us bring the motor forward while that firewall is going forward as well. So as that firewall came forward, all the components within the truck can be carried forward as well. So that means you're not limited to something like a mini Gen 3 vintage air unit. It now opens up massive amounts of space for a Gen 4, Gen 5, tons of cooling capacity for an evaporator under the dash, and it makes everything under the dash just a lot easier to package. The next thing to look at was the steering, because you still have the challenge of getting the steering linkage around the motor and carrying the column up and getting it out of your way. So a really neat product that's been out there for quite a while is a steer clear unit. A lot of people look at them and they say, well, probably the truck's probably gonna have, car's probably gonna have slop in it because it's a chain drive, it's this, it's that. Yeah, don't listen to those people, right? We've used those on quite a few vehicles and they work fantastic. It's like, it's a hidden gem. You don't see a lot of people using them, and you don't see a lot of people using them right. So we put that chain drive in there, and it allows us to bring the bottom of the column way, way up, and put the column like, you know, almost perpendicular to the dashboard, you know. And it's a tilt column, so it's an I did it tilt. So for bigger guys, tilt that up. For me, I like it tilted down. You got a perfect view of the gauges, but it just places the column just so nice, and you can swing your feet right underneath it, get on the pedals, no problem whatsoever. And it accomplishes two things. It gets the column up, but it makes your steering connection coming out of that steer clear super easy, because now you've taken that U-joint and you've brought it from a funky angle that could be way up here, you're dropping it way down, way closer to the plane of the steering rack itself, and it's almost a straight shot. So 2 U-joints coming out, 1 U-joint going in, and you've got a phenomenal working steering system, and it works just so well in the truck. The extended wheelbase, the ergonomics of this, the RideLine chassis, it makes this truck an absolute pleasure. It drives down the road as nice as any luxury vehicle I've ever driven. Not wildly fast, accelerates enough with just a stock Coyote and a 6-speed auto, but for something that you want to jump in, take on road trips, daily drive, this checks all the boxes. Now, it'll still do a little burnout if you want, and it gives you a little bit of thrill if you want to get on it, but to me, once again, this truck, it's got the right components. We talked about that a little bit with the OBS build, on selecting the right motor and trans and not getting crazy with the power. There's a time and a place for it. This just seems like the right setup for this truck. So on the build itself, it followed a lot of just our kind of standard survivor type stuff. Dakota Digital RTX gauge cluster, which, awesome. I mean, again, I'm hoping that I'm going to start seeing the kickbacks from Dakota Digital, because I rave about them on every single one of these reviews, but they deserve it. The gauge is just OE quality. I mean, it fits the theme of the truck, and it works just like the rest of the truck works. So just like I say, this thing goes down the road like a modern luxury car. The gauge display, every bit as nice and legible as a modern day car as well. Steering wheel itself, the customer actually sourced this Mercury steering wheel It's been shrunken down to about a 15-inch, so the diameter's right for a decent steering ratio on the truck. Kind of populated the center of the dash with all of our AC switches. Something that we do a lot of times with these vintage air units is we get just the individual control knobs. So instead of taking their 3-knob or their sliders, you can buy just the individual knobs themselves, and we make some cool little billet parts, package them in it. Beneath that, what we've done is, once again, something we've done on quite a few other vehicles. I like this trick. I'd recommend this trick for a lot of you out there. AC vents are super tough, and it's always hard to find the right AC vent for the project. So what better way to package AC vents than just get an old AC box? It makes routing the AC so easy on the ductwork, because you've got these big vents, they're placed exactly where you want them, and you can make a manifold and you just make your connection on the back. So you take all 4 of your hoses, plug them in, and boom, blows right on the driver and passenger, and that's really all you need. So we didn't have to modify the dash, no cutting up the sides of the dash or trying to blend some modern AC vent or even an aftermarket vent that may or may not look the part. Works really, really good. I mean, we could talk about all the little neat tips and tricks on this truck, the gauges, the little billet trinkets and all that. There's so much to this truck, but really and truly, I can't stress. I'm trying to articulate how awesome it is to sit in this thing. And like, that's the most violent train tracks in the entire area here, and the truck just glides over. I think it's just, we nailed it. I mean, engineering team put forth a tremendous effort, and everybody on this, through the fabrication, through assembly, everybody worked together to make this thing just dynamite. I've driven so many of these trucks, and usually you're sitting in these things and you are crammed up on the steering wheel and you just feel awkward. Your head's up here. I mean, you could fit 2 of me in here. So some of the stuff on the actual truck itself that's kind of unique is what we've done in the bed out back. So customer intends to use this truck and use it regularly. He tends to haul a trailer, he tends to haul a motorcycle, tends to haul all his crap to car shows. So the back has 2 storage compartments in the bed. We've made a false bed floor that beneath it is a spare tire well in the very back, and forward of that is a storage well. Both of those compartments hinge on gas struts, and we use kind of a marine latch to keep them down. Sitting kind of right off to the sides of both of those panels are some tie downs, so tie down hooks. So we used an aircraft track, and comes from Max tie downs. Use that on a number of trucks. Really cool stuff. You get some nice little, I want to say they're 6 or 8 inches long, little billet aircraft tracks, and those we actually put structurally right down to the frame of the truck. So it's not connected to just the bed floor, not connected to the wood. Goes and ties right into the actual frame rails of the truck. Styling aspects of the truck, pretty much stock F100. Came in with a pretty cool look to it, just a jet black truck, and it had some steely wheels. So as we increased the spindle height and we increased the brake diameter, we had to increase the wheel diameter a little bit as well. So it's an 18 and 19 inch combo. Forge line, it's our OE ones, and then we put a spider cap on the center of it, so it gives it a nice little hot rod flare to it, and I think it works good with the truck. The usability, the serviceability, functionality, you try to think of like worst case scenarios, right? What if the battery goes dead? What if you got to jump the truck? Where do you plug in your jumper? How do you jump the truck? How do you plug in your battery tender? And how do you make all that stuff accessible and not bury it under the truck or in some compartment or inside the truck where you're hinging seats forward, something like that. So in the passenger side of the bed on this particular truck, you'll see a cool little hinge door, and in that we've got a nice little 3D printed divider that splits the jumper posts, so you can't do any welding with your jumper post if you get in there and it's dark late at night, or got a little light in there as well, so you can clamp it on. Good to go. Battery tenders in there as well. Battery disconnect, everything that you need, all serviceable right there. Beyond that, the truck largely has, for the most part, all of our Survivor build type components. Big CNR radiator with a 19-inch PWM fan. Massive stainless gas tank with a, again, a PWM GM fuel pump controlled with a VaporWorks controller, so electronically regulated. Makes for a very simple fuel system, 1-6 line from the back to the front, and you're in business. So, all in all, probably not the most exciting ride. No tire smoke, no slalom, no sliding sideways, just floating down the road and enjoying myself, which actually makes it pretty easy to talk through these interviews because, man, I feel like I'm just in a brand new luxury car. So if that's the goal, if that's what you're looking for, you want to make something cruise down the street like a brand new car, you want to road tour it, you want to drive the wheels off of it, you've got something, I mean, it can be anything, 40s, 50s, 60s. I'd absolutely look at that RideLine option. Phenomenal ride quality, great performance, independent rear is a wonderful upgrade. Check it out, jump on our website, all sorts of information on it, and hope you guys enjoyed the truck.